I've spent years looking back on what I saw as if it happened to someone else. But the truth, even if we've always had a tentative relationship, is that I was there. Consider this a confession, a peek behind the curtain of a town that shouldn't exist. My mother was a cop in a crowded city. I tried to outrun her legacy, but I always fell back into the role of the lawkeeper. When she died of cervical cancer during my final year at the academy, walking my own beat felt like stepping into a dead woman's boots. But my first precinct was corrupt. My handler ignored calls unless there was a shootout. They were skimming off the top of illicit deals, and the union swept the dirt under the rug. When I tried to plead for a fair department, the chief gave me a look of pity. "We can't keep you here," he said, "but we have a place for people who really want to do the job." That's how I ended up in Tomscog, Minnesota. It's a social black hole. If you miss the turnoff on the highway, you'll never find it. Most who move there never leave. The station was a shack with a white plastic sign and a town seal, a blue sunflower on a golden shield. The sheriff, Mason Brooks, a man built like a human meatball with an ex-wrestler's mustache, greeted me with, "My condolences." My partner, Nick Aiken, was a balding man in pink John Lennon glasses who spent his mornings bashing a vending machine for free Cokes. His advice? Idiots live long around here. On our first patrol in a rusted white Volvo, Nick dropped the bomb. "We don't sign reports here, rookie." "What do you mean?" I asked. "If you find a dead guy in an alley with his throat cut, you file it as an accident. If you don't, outsiders come. Reporters, feds. They don't understand this town. They'll get themselves killed. We're the lid on the pot." Tomscog had the highest murder rate in the country, but on paper, it was a paradise of tragic accidents. I spent weeks feeling like a street sweeper rather than a cop, burning mysterious diaries and shooting frogs with BB guns to prevent headaches. Then came New Year's Eve. The direct line rang, a line I'd never heard before. A woman named Miss Babin spoke calmly. "I think something is affecting the residents. Like an animal." Nick's face went pale. "The Babin building." Now, the apartment building smelled of ammonia and chlorine. Nick sent me to the top floor to evacuate residents. The air was thick, burning my throat. I knocked on the first door, and a woman in her 60s flung it open. Her pupils were vast, black voids. She grinned so wide a tooth fell out and clattered onto the mat. Her hands were stained a vibrant, chemical blue. "A little wheat," she shrieked, lunging for my face. "You came for the harvest." Doors began to pop open down the hallway. Neighbors in party hats, an old man in stained underwear, all of them with black eyes and that blue sludge leaking from their ears and mouths. They moved with a twitchy, unnatural rhythm. The sun rose over a town that looked perfectly normal, but my boots were still stained blue. Nick didn't ask questions. He just handed me a gallon of industrial bleach and told me to scrub the squad car. I learned that day that the Babin building incident wasn't a one-time event. It was a cycle. The residents who survived didn't remember the harvest. They woke up with missing teeth and chemical burns, thanking us for helping them during a gas leak. I realized then that the police department wasn't just hiding crimes. We were managing a feeding ground. The sheriff assigned me to Signal Watch. Every Tuesday, a specific house on the ridge would broadcast a high-frequency screech on Channel 4. My job was to sit in the driveway and make sure no one knocked on the door. I sat there for 3 hours, listening to the static, until I saw a face pressed against the glass of the upstairs window. It wasn't human. It looked like a person made of TV static, flickering in and out of existence. When I reported it to Nick, he just sighed and said, "Don't look at the screen, kid. It's looking back." Car went into Lake Adabat. Standard procedure. Call the divers, right? Not in Tomscog. Mason Brooks told me to park the car and wait. We watched as the bubbles stopped. But then, the car rose back to the surface, empty and bone dry. There was no water inside the vehicle, only a pile of wet, blue sunflowers on the driver's seat. The driver was never found. Nick filed it as a mechanical failure. I started to wonder if the lake wasn't made of water at all, but something much hungrier. I ran into Digman again at the gas station. He looked at my badge and laughed. A wet, rattling sound. "You're wearing her boots, but you don't have her soul," he whispered. He told me that my mother had been here once, years ago, before she was a cop in the city. He claimed the cervical cancer that killed her started in Tomscog. I wanted to arrest him, to scream at him, but my hand froze on my holster. Digman wasn't a criminal. He was a symptom of the town. It was time for the weekly burning of EMTT Rask's diary. We went to the abandoned library, a place where the gravity felt heavy. The diary was always there, sitting on the same desk, even though we burned it every 7 days. I made the mistake of reading a page. It described my own arrival in Tomscog, detail for detail, including the blue sludge in the shower. The last entry was dated for tomorrow. It simply said, "The wheat realizes it is not a farmer." On a Thursday night, the entire town went silent. No cars, no dogs barking. I looked out my window and saw the residents walking toward the woods in perfect unison. They weren't under the influence of the blue goo. They looked stone-cold sober. They were carrying mirrors. I followed them from a distance until Nick pulled me back into the shadows. "They're reflecting the moon," he whispered. "If the moon sees the town, it stays away. If it sees a person, it comes down." I came into work to find a new name tag on the desk next to mine. It said Officer Miller, but there was no Miller. The chair was empty, yet Nick and the sheriff talked to the empty space as if a man were sitting there. They laughed at Miller's jokes and asked him about his kids. I realized that in Tomscog, people could be erased while their roles remained. I began to fear that one day, my desk would be empty, and Nick would be laughing with a ghost named Mason. I tried to drive out of town. I just wanted a weekend away. But no matter which road I took, I ended up passing the same flower shop with the blue sunflowers. The main road eventually became a loop. I drove for 6 hours and only used half a gallon of gas. The town wasn't letting me leave because I had tasted the harvest in that bathroom. I was no longer a visitor. I was property. Sheriff Mason Brooks called me into his office. He looked tired, older than 50. He showed me the town seal and pointed to the golden shield. "The shield isn't to protect the people," he said. "It's to keep the thing underneath from getting out." He told me the blue goo was the blood of something sleeping beneath the Minnesota soil. The police department's job was to keep the sleeper fed, so it wouldn't wake up and eat the rest of the world. The sirens began to wail. Not the police sirens, the town's air raid sirens. The sky turned a bruised purple, and the smell of ammonia filled the air. Nick handed me my service weapon and a bucket of blue paint. "Either you paint your face and join the parade, or you stay human and become the wheat," he said. I looked at my mother's boots, then at the grinning crowd gathering outside. I realized the only way to protect and serve was to lose my humanity entirely.